Hello Leeds, how are you doing? Are you well? Staying inside? Keeping your hands clean? I'm glad to hear it. Welcome to episode 4 of the LAWHN Leeds Corona Bloody Virus Extraordinary Episodes. This one features Geraldine Montgomerie and Fe from LAWHN, which is LAWHN, Leeds Art's Health and Wellbeing Network. Do have a listen and find out what they're doing in the city, how you can access their services and how you can get involved with the network. So welcome to another Corona Bloody Virus Extraordinary episode, and today coming along remotely we have Geraldine Montgomerie and Fe. Hello both of you.
Hi Hazel. Hi Hazel, you okay?
Yeah, I'm alright, thank you for remotely being here. And so you're both from LAWHN, which is LAWHN, Leeds Arts Health and Wellbeing Network.
Yes indeed.
That's right.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Fe, could you start?
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to start with what I kind of know? Because I'm basically on the steering group, and this came about when we had a health and wellbeing conference at room 700 in the art library, just next to the art library, where lots of people who were interested in health and wellbeing and art came together to have a conference and talk about what we could do in Leeds as a network to support people who are doing things with art and well-being, and to network and to develop, because Leeds is a growing city in many ways, and something like this will be very valuable for the city. So we had a conference and we saw people would put down whether they wanted to be interested or not. So I put my name down, but not my contact details, obviously, because it's just out there open. And I just thought, how are they going to get in contact with me? But Linda from Arts and Minds went to the first meeting and mentioned that I was interested in being on the steering group. So they invited me along, and I've just been going along ever since to the meetings we have about, I think, every couple of months. And there's a lot of organisations, mainly. I'm representing actual artists.
Yeah.
So most of them are organisations from Leeds who are working in the arts and wanting to develop health and well-being. So yeah, we have these lovely meetings. We get to meet each other and talk about all sorts of different things. I learn lots being there as well, because there's a lot of different organisations who are doing a lot of different things. So yeah, that's what I've been doing with the steering group, and getting involved with a lot of voluntary work and working. Geraldine's fairly new and she's fabulous. Total gift. So it's great having her, because she's an artist as well. So I guess we understand each other quite well.
So Geraldine, how did you get involved with it?
I guess sort of just as a little bit of background, I've been working in mental health services in Leeds for the last 10 years. And before that in drug and alcohol services in prisons. So I've had quite a lot of background on the health and the clinical side, and been involved in research around how to improve health services. Mm-hmm. But I'm also very interested in practicing the arts, kind of more as a community artist, more as an amateur than Fe, who is quite distinguished. But my interest was in bringing those two worlds together. So I was working with the Arts and Minds Network, developing some exhibitions with people using mental health services, with therapists, with taxi drivers, with storytellers, with musicians, just bringing together really interesting events. And it was coming to the end of the mental health services contracts, and my post wasn't going to be renewed, so I'd need to move into a slightly different field. Yeah. And as I was looking at different job options, I noticed the post of the Arts and Health Network Coordinator, kind of project officer coming up. And it happened that Fe was on the interview panel for me, so she probably knows a lot more about that process than I do. But I think there was interest in the fact that I was a charity trustee directing a community company, so I have some understanding of the challenges of running an organisation, having been an artist and a curator and a writer and a publisher and a promoter of gigs and music events. Then I had some understanding of the sort of art sector, and working in the voluntary sector and the NHS as a clinician, as a mental health worker, then I also had some understanding of some of the difficulties around clinical work. I'm also based at the University of Leeds in this role, so I spend a lot of time with researchers and people more from the universities and academic side. And I've never really stopped studying because I always interested in sort of further development. So I'm also quite interested in the sort of training and development of skills more widely. The main things that I find from working in a network is it's about maybe taking away some of the barriers to how we work in Leeds. Sometimes we find ourselves a bit limited by the opportunities that we can see because we tend to mix with the same people and work in the same office with the same kind of people and work with people with similar needs and experiences and backgrounds, whether that's the people that we're working with or the people we're working for. But what would probably help a lot in developing things like arts and health projects, having more interest in arts and culture opportunities and having more responsive health and wellbeing services is to work cross-sector and to pay attention to maybe some of the people who are being left out or some might say marginalised or disadvantaged. But basically looking at those people who maybe aren't using health services or aren't accessing arts and culture and having a look at what might be the reasons why, listening to people's experiences, but also listening to workers on the ground who might already be well aware that some of the work isn't reaching people that need it. So a lot of our network is there's no real hierarchy, whether you're the leader of an organisation or a politician or an artist or just a citizen of Leeds. If you want to talk to us and lead workshops and, hold events, I'm very interested in listening to anybody who's got a passion for arts and health and to make the resources of the network available to those people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And should they email you if people are listening and then want to get involved?
Yeah, on Twitter we have a kind of ongoing kind of non-stop discussion around arts and health, both locally, regionally, nationally and internationally. So I'm always sharing information there, and you can join the network from our Twitter handle. That's Leeds AHWN. We've also got a Facebook page, a website, an Instagram account, and just by putting Leeds Arts Health and Wellbeing Network into Google, you can find us fairly quickly to sign up to the network. So anybody can join. Obviously we're interested in people who maybe see a specific need for arts and health that we might be able to help with, or maybe people who have something to offer. Maybe they'd be interested in supporting events or training or giving up a room in the community for some work. But anybody, even if they don't feel they've got an ask or an offer, is very welcome to join us at any time. I think there's strength in numbers, and I think it's really helpful to have as broad a range of perspectives as possible. And we keep, a regular newsletter going out usually twice a month to let people know what's going on in Leeds and beyond. So if you're just interested in being informed, it's a good way to keep up to date with things.
Oh, excellent.
Sorry, could I just say before we continue, I've got a message that says ready, and yours says connected. Are we actually? Is it going through?
Yeah, everything's fine. At my end,
cool.
I can see I've got like a recording strip. It's still recording. We're on 8.5 minutes, and it's you and Fe. Yeah.
Jolly good. Okay.
Excellent. So what kind of in what way do you think that art does help with mental health?
Oh, I'd say in many ways. It's when any human is being creative, which is our natural being to be creative, it gets everything into balance, and art can bring out things inside of you that you can't interpret through the normal channels that we're told to express ourselves in. And I think with the type of art that I'm involved with, it's not judgmental. As for example, I'm an art doctor. When Art Doctors was started by Liz Sterling and Alison McIntyre, and Art Doctors are all about getting people to engage with art in a fun, sometimes, well, a lot of times silly way, a very casual, elitist sort of academic way of connecting with art, and people, no matter what they do, if it's creative or artistic, find that it just helps with whatever's going on in their mind, whatever problem they're having mentally or emotionally. Art works in a way that other methods don't work. For example, I was working as an art activator with the Yorkshire Sculpture International last summer, which was fabulous. And part of it was working with children, teaching them about sculpture. Now, schools are very academic and quite narrow in the way they try to get children to produce things, express themselves, or learn something. It's like if you don't learn the academic school way, then there's something wrong with you, or you're not as bright, or you're not this, you're not that. So a lot of the kids came into the sculpture, the area at the back in the art gallery where we had the sculptures, and I was keen to make sure it was an environment where everybody, including the parents as well, could engage with the making of the sculptures with all these very few materials: paper, straws, paper cups, a little bit of sticky tape, some card, very minimal amount of sculpture. And a lot of kids, when they came to make the sculpture, none of them walked in saying, "Oh, I'm an artist. This is what I do." They're just children coming to experience sculpture. And sculpture, for example, is something, you know, if you say sculpture, people are like, well, I surely can't sculpt because I've got visions of big pieces of marble and somebody with a chisel hammering away at making some sort of sculpture. When sculpture is just basically 3D image of art, so anybody can make a sculpture out of anything.
Yeah.
So the kids started to engage with the materials and start to make sculpture, and you could see different talents within the children. For example, a child would construct maybe some sort of building fixture. So I said to them, "Oh, well, look, this is you being an architect." And they would think, "Huh? What do you mean?" Because, like, you know, architects are people who, you know, are something else. You're an adult for a start if you're an architect, and you're going to be doing technical drawings and all this type of stuff, building massive buildings. Says, "Well, no, actually, this is you being an architect. You could actually be an architect when you grow up." And we're like, "Ah." So it sort of, it ignites something in them. Yeah. So they think they can see themselves in different ways, and like different kids will have different talents. Like some kids will like designers, or a girl made like a bag out of the sculptures, and other people like engineers. So whatever type of talent, academic talent, they sort of brought out through this sculpture, I would say, "Oh, look at you, this is you being a da-da-da-da." Yeah. And then they will think, and it just opens them up in different ways. Like if they were at school now, there was no way anybody would say they were an architect because, you know, maybe they weren't mathematic or other various academic aspects you have to have for these type of jobs. And really it all starts with creativity.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
just
fantastic.
leading in from... Oh,
sorry, carry on,
just
Geraldine.
leading in from what... from what Fe said, last year there was a what was called the Great Get Creative Festival, a British creativity test that was led by the BBC. It interviewed 50,000 people, and it was looking at, you know, what people get out of creativity. And the results of that research were that there's three main ways that we use creativity as coping mechanisms. One way is to distract ourselves. So it takes our mind off things. And at the moment, as we're recording, we're living through the COVID outbreak and living through the restrictions and the changes in our lives. And distraction right now, I think, is, you know, really useful. I think it's where loads of people are watching a lot more Netflix, or they're engaged with their children differently, or they're maybe being a little bit more casual and creative in their work approach. They're problem solving, but they're also kind of taking their minds off alongside that. And another finding was that people use creativity to contemplate, so to process and to understand, and that might be journaling, or it might be drawing things that we're kind of noticing, but it's just helping us to kind of comprehend and to look back on how things are going and to have greater understanding. But lastly, as Fe was referring to with her work in schools, well, with school children, it's a way of self-developing. It's a way of changing the way that we see ourselves, and to kind of build confidence in not only who we are, but maybe who we could be. So being able to own the idea of being an artist or or having competencies, but also kind of using art to dream different realities, I think is really important, especially at this time when we can't do the things that we've previously been able to do. We might be able to use the arts to kind of connect with other people, but also connect with ourselves and to reimagine ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, that's a lovely way of looking at it. I think there is something when you were talking about sort of how your mind is when you're creating any sort of piece of art. There's something really sort of quietening about that. I suppose a little bit like when people meditate and they try to sort of find that sort of quiet space in their mind.
Yeah, because
it
helps you to focus. You when you are creating, you are doing something that comes from you. If you're being authentic about it, some people might look at something and try and copy it. It's not exactly the same process, but it just gives you permission to pause, and something happens in your brain that switches you into a different sort of sphere than the normal parts of your brain that you use for everyday, mundane, routine things. It gives you the ability to just expand in different ways that you can't get to do through anything else. I'm fortunate because I've always been creative. I've done performing arts and writing, and also everything I do is creative, so it's really natural to me. But I find with people who think they're not creative, because I think there's only certain people that are creative. Because at school we were the kind of bonkers kids who were always dancing and performing and doing all sort of art stuff. And then people think, well, that's not for me. Different types of people do that. But being creative is who we are. If we're not creating, well, we're always creating. Whether we're creating something good or something bad, we are always in the process of creating. And when people sort of realize that, you can do something positive with that creativity and it can help in so many different ways, that's when you start to change things, and people have an actual tool that actually they do get some genuine benefits from.
I'd just like to carry on from what Fe was saying, just to put a spanner in the works. There's a kind of a school of thought about the idea of creativity as coming from yourself, but even when you're being inspired by other artwork, maybe copying from photographs or working from other people's artwork or using colouring techniques, there's so many well-being attributes to that. There's a Dr. Nicola Holt, who's a psychologist in Bristol, who's doing a lot of research around colouring. And I was doing a talk to a school in Leeds, Chapelton Primary School, about some of the benefits of using art to cope with things and to draw. And they were the children there were telling me about the benefits they notice from copying drawings, particularly abstract drawings, in improving their moods and using colouring to improve their moods. And I think, choosing colours and using colour to kind of help with mood, and using mindfulness approaches through colouring and art is also really important to people's well-being. And I think those things are still very valid creativity practices, but they also help to lead us to be more confident with art materials that will probably help to do that more expressive art that Fe was talking about as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that partly some people's reluctance, Fe, you were talking about, people thinking that they're not creative and sort of writing themselves off from that sphere. Do you think that's partly to do with fear of judgment? So you create something and then you place the value on what other people value instead of just enjoying the process and not being too worried about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a discussion that I have a lot when I'm down at the art gallery with Meet and Make and Art Chat. What is art? Who's allowed to do it? Who's chosen to, put the things in art galleries? And I find that a lot of people, especially with working with art doctors as well, when we had discussions at the exhibitions with the people that came in to see the exhibition, a lot of people had a lot of bad experiences at school with art. It's quite elitist, as I was saying before. And if you don't draw in the way the art teacher tells you how to draw, then you're completely wrong, which is kind of most academic anyway. You don't do it their way. And people just cut themselves off from it and don't choose to pursue it at all because they just think it's nothing to do with it. I'm not good at it. And if I draw something, whether it's good or whether it's bad, and it's not about what you produce in terms of what standard it is to somebody else's standards. You're expressing yourself, you're creating something. It doesn't have to be the most amazing piece of artwork ever. There's different types of art. There's creativity, which is what we all do. And then art, I would say, is a commercialization of creativity, because we have galleries filled of pieces of art which somebody has decided is the most amazing piece of art ever. And we find that people who don't have any academia with art look at art and feel like they can't have an expression or even an experience with art because they haven't been educated formally in art. So people are very afraid of art, and that's not something that Art Doctors is trying to break down, how people engage with art and get them to open up and realize that whatever they do is valid. And we can talk about anything. For example, in Art Chat at the Leeds Art Gallery, we have a group of people who come every Friday to talk about various pieces of artwork in the gallery. And it's for anybody who's just remotely interested in art. It's not about whether you're educated in art and you know about brush strokes and certain artists or anything like that. And it's just a case of we're put in front of a piece of artwork and we just talk about how we feel about it, what we think about it, how our sort of interaction is with the art. Just basically anything. People, whatever they say is 100% valid, and nobody's chastised for not knowing, facts about the art piece or the artist. So this type of breaking down the barriers to art, because a lot of barriers to art, like I said, it's elitist, and art galleries aren't necessarily the most friendly, relaxed places to be. It's changing, taking art out of those areas of the gallery and making people realise that art could be anything that's creative. Obviously, you can appreciate somebody's amazing brushstroke to make a piece of artwork look good. Of course, there's technique and those kind of things, but we must understand that obviously someone who's not necessarily as technically qualified, experienced as another artist shouldn't be tossed in the bin or put in a category that's not considered art. So that's
and I think quite often as well, people sort of forget that when you're looking at a piece of art, it's about how it makes you feel. So not necessarily reading a blurb or like a review or something by somebody else and how it made them feel, and so and in that way, then there is no right or wrong.
Yeah, everything's valid. I think we just need to move on from this exclusiveness to do with art, because it's a shame, because so many people are missing out through experiencing the joy of art, of creating art, of looking at art. All of these things that everyone can benefit from. People have been fenced off because of various experiences they had at school, and the attitude, especially in this country, because when I spent some time in Barcelona, there are art galleries all over the gaff, literally. There's like Starbucks, there's like their art galleries, and they're independent galleries, and you just walk in, there's, you don't have to pay, or, there's no if you walk in, nobody's like, what are you doing here? You don't look like somebody who's into art. And it's so open to everybody, and they have a completely different attitude towards art.
Yeah.
So it'd be great if this country could, get a handle on what's going on with the art scene and just, open it up and stop being so exclusive and it's held in a certain social class, and only certain types of artists can become, famous or popular or get paid, get commissioned.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And if I could just go back to a point, Geraldine, you were talking about trying to find people who wouldn't necessarily normally engage with art and mental health well-being. How are you identifying sort of the groups of people who are not accessing art in this way?
Well, there's a few things that are going on in Leeds and more broadly. So there's quite a lot of research coming out in the UK around where health might be particularly benefited by arts and culture. For example, last year there was some research being published about how in older people there's a really good relationship between cultural engagement, like going to galleries and theatres and museums, and a reduction in risks around developing depression.
Yeah.
So I think there are people who are older and more isolated who might be at risk of of low mood and depression, and knowing that cultural activity supports your well-being can be something that just helps to promote arts and culture to particular people. So I'm talking with care activity coordinators in care homes across Leeds about how to improve cultural engagement. And obviously at the moment care homes are in lockdown, so we're looking at sort of more online and varied resources, and taking guidance nationally by linking in with the National Arts and Care Home Day coming up in September to share information across care activity coordinators. But there's also been some research done by the same researcher, Dr. Daisy Fancourt, who's based in the South, around what are those kind of structural issues that are kind of not related to geography, but kind of more about how our society is and who's excluded from arts. And what that research has found is that it tends to be people who have health problems, poorer physical health and poorer mental health, that don't just have barriers about, you know, how they see art and their ability and interest and capability in art, but also have problems about how to be motivated, how to kind of, you know, get out and be in a group of people that you don't know, or be in a position where maybe you're needing to learn because you maybe don't have skills or experience in a certain area. And that research has also led to lots of ideas about how we might overcome those barriers. So some of that is the very core message of the network, which is just about improving and raising awareness of not only that, you know, the arts are nice, and for people who are already doing arts, it can be good for your own kind of well-being, like we were talking about with the results of the creativity test. But that there are particular health conditions where the arts might be particularly useful. There's some ongoing research about whether studies that we've had so far across the UK and Europe might work in larger groups. The positive findings of that research, that we want to know whether they're borne out in much larger groups. But some of that work is being done around singing and mums with babies. So we know that in the first 12 weeks of a child's life, some mums are at higher risk of postnatal depression. So we're already having those groups with music in Leeds, who are doing lots of wonderful musical activities and gigs and events aimed at children, mums with very young children, and also sort of slightly larger children. So youth anthems, which regularly runs in a city centre and are currently, like Made with Music, adapting to have online sessions, aiming sort of music at parents that might otherwise miss out on live music because of having small children. And as I say, there seems to be some really good links around singing and music and mums and also dad's well-being. There's also evidence around Parkinson's and more broadly dementia and arts engagement. So there's a programme at the moment developing ballet sessions with people living with a Parkinson's diagnosis. But in Leeds, we've got the Immature Company, which is a project done by Time to Shine that coordinating projects for older people with the Yorkshire Dance. And we've also got a programme called Ascendance, which again is focusing just in Leeds and the near area, and dance for older people living with Parkinson's and related conditions. And just another thing, again, that is part of that Shaper programme of scaling up these arts interventions in the UK is around the performing arts with stroke survivors. So people who were living with ongoing problems following stroke, like exploring how the performing arts can help them live better with those symptoms. And in Leeds, we've got the Giving Voice Choir, which is a choir of people led by speech and language therapists in the NHS, helping people to sing to kind of improve their independence and abilities. They're actually now a digital choir as well, so it's wonderful to see during this outbreak how many services have been able to adapt what they're doing so that they can continue to benefit people with their health conditions through arts.
Yeah, because one of the questions I was going to ask as part of this offshoot series is, how are you both coping with lockdown? But a lot of the things that you've mentioned, it sounds like, in some ways, as terrible as this situation is, it's made people sort of think outside of the box. And now it seems that there's such a lot of things that you can access online. I think I've seen all sorts of links to sort of art galleries that you can go and do a virtual tour and things like that. So in a strange way, even though we're trapped in our homes, access to the art seems to have got wider.
Yeah, so I suppose to some extent, because we do, when art, when art has to be experienced live whenever possible.
Yeah.
Because that's the preferable way, because you get different vibrations when you're actually there with the art. But it's great because it has, as you said, reached people that probably wouldn't even think about it, or I'm not gone to a gallery, but hey, it's on. A lot of people who do a lot of stuff online. Here it is online, available for them to have a look. So it's definitely reached out to different people through the digital world. But as an artist and someone who experienced art, I know that seeing it live as whenever you can is the best thing to do.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So how are you both coping with lockdown? If I ask you first, Geraldine.
Growls.
Yeah, because I've got 2 children and they're not at nursery or at school, and I live with somebody who's also working from home, but maybe their work is more challenging as they adapt and as I adapt to working from home. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to not really. It's not really about the expectations of the Arts and Health Network or of being in school. It's more, I think, my own internal idea of how I'd like things to be.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, just coping with your own aspirations of yourself and other people. I think this situation has really brought home to me how ambitious I am for myself sometimes, and how frustrating it is when I can't have that ambition.
Yeah.
Sort of meant to the people to behave, but people don't often live up to your expectations of how they should behave either.
No.
I think the other side of it is we know that there's things that we need to do at the moment to protect and to protect other people's health and to protect the vital services such as the NHS. But how to do that in the best possible way whilst looking after our own well-being and trying to meet our needs as best we can. And that's quite challenging at the moment, to weigh up all the different risks and concerns and advice and information that's out there, because there is so much information. It's constantly changing. And as you said, Hazel, there's so many resources out there to kind of occupy and inspire and inform us, but it's almost like there's too much of that information as well. It's kind of hard to know where to start at times. Obviously, sometimes you just feel a pull towards something. A thing comes into your head and you're like, oh, I wonder if I can learn about that. And if you've got access to the internet, then, an unlimited access to the internet and unlimited machines with which to access the internet, then that kind of works out all right. But if the whole family's arguing over a telly, as they do in my house, if you're also all arguing over a laptop or all arguing over a games console or whatever you have that's there to distract you, it's actually quite difficult. It's also, alongside lots of kind of coming together and shared problem solving and cooperation, I'm seeing so much togetherness in such a lot of ways, and such a really positive, generous spirit coming out of Leeds. There's also maybe privately, and certainly behind our closed doors, quite a lot of frustration and upset and misunderstanding and poor communication alongside all that good communication. I think on the whole, it's becoming easier as time goes on, but I think there's also going to be a point at which it starts becoming harder again as we're waiting to kind of go back to the life we knew. And for many of us, we're not going to be able to fully go back to how things were before.
No.
That might be because people's exams have been cancelled, or, my son might not go back to nursery this year. He might go straight into school without having properly said goodbye to the people around him. My daughter might never go back to her year group and start another year at school. I think some of those things, those kind of expectations that we're going to do things, events that have been cancelled that we've been looking forward to. I think all those things are quite difficult, particularly if, like me, you're involved in putting on those events as well as enjoying them. Some of the hard work that people have put in over months and sometimes years, such as at Leeds Playhouse, they've been working on this amazing production called Maggie May, developed by people living with dementia, and telling stories about, how important humour is during, living with health conditions, and how important relationships are when you're adapting, the people around you that support you as you're adapting to change in health and well-being. And I'm sure that production will go ahead, but it's not going ahead on the 31st of March, which is past, and it's not touring where it was planned to tour, and there'll be other things that are scheduled where it was meant to be scheduled or rescheduled, which, obviously is just causing a lot of frustration and upset of its own. So I guess we're all adapting, but I guess it's difficult to be honest as to say how badly we're doing it sometimes, and how brilliantly and inspiringly we're doing it at other times. And I don't know whether, the benefits of what we're going to learn from working together and working differently and volunteering, I'm hoping those benefits outweigh the costs of this crisis. But it's difficult to assess at the moment. And in some households, there'll be costs to relationships. And
divorce lawyers are quite affluent time.
How about you, Fe? How are you coping?
Exactly.
That's just the general noise of coronavirus, isn't it?
Lockdown, formerly known as house arrest. Yeah, it's just, I don't even know what to say, because obviously the majority of us haven't experienced anything like this ever in our lives. It's not something that we've been prepared to cope with. So it's just basically on a daily basis, you're just trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah. And the psychological warfare is off the Richter scale. I mean, if people didn't have any mental health issues beforehand, well, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an increase in that. So our job of helping people with well-being in that sector, needs to be on point, because people are just suffering emotions and things that they just haven't experienced before. They don't really have a coping mechanism. And none
of us do we?
No, it's just, I literally take each day, each hour, each minute as it comes, because I think people need to be kind and gentle with themselves. And so, for example, people who are quite in control of their life and know what they want to do, they're very organised, this is going to be very bonkers for them, and they're going to feel, not good about not having any control over what they're doing, and how, the way they'll say, okay, I'm going to do this tomorrow, then you wake up the next day and you just feel rubbish, so unmotivated, excuse me. And, that puts a major downer, for want of a better expression, on, people's psyche, and it's ongoing. So it's not like, this is, every time they say, maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to move on, but it doesn't. So it messes with your mind a lot. And I'm a very positive, motivated person, and I'm finding it hard to be motivated as much as I normally am. So, it goes against human nature to restrict people's movements anyway. That's never a good thing.
No.
And I'm just hoping that people are, doing the best that they can do. They just have to be kind, because I know I can see people are going to be, freaking out about quite a lot of things that are happening. And people need to just be there for each other, which is, as Geraldine said, a lot of people doing that. That's what I love about being Yorkshire, because we're kind of like that anyway. So we're kind of getting on with helping other people. And the minute this happened, people are out there checking on people to see if they're okay. We remember that we have old people in our community, which is great. So then let's remember them after this. And all the things that we're doing for each other, I hope it continues, and we have a lot more of a kinder, thoughtful society. Probably less consumer wise as well, because we're not able to go out and shop. I mean, anyone who knows me knows I love to shop. But it's like, and I've cut down quite a lot of my shopping anyway, but it's nice because we do think, oh my gosh, I need something, I need to go get it now. And like, actually, we can't get the things that we want now. And we can actually do without them, actually, as it happens. So people could like think twice about all the buying we do. There's a lot of things that will change, and we don't really know what the aftermath is going to be, but there's going to be a lot of things that the government will want to change. But also as people, we have to be conscious of what we want to change, not just sit back and let the government just do whatever they want to do. We need to start thinking about what kind of a society that we want to live in. Yeah. Not that they want to live in. So whilst we're all locked up, not being able to do anything, people could start, just having a think, having that pause to see, is my life going in the way that I want it to? Are the goals that I've been chasing all my life really what I want to do? And are they going to really make me happy? Yeah. Just stuff like that. Just a lot of contemplating, reflecting. It's an opportunity to do that. So coping, but I'm missing the just going out and doing your thing, because outside's kind of hostile. Even if you are allowed to go out for a bit of shopping, a bit of jogging, it still doesn't feel good. But I think people should just communicate as much as they can. Hopefully the people who don't have the technology to do all the online stuff, people are coming around to see that they're okay standing at a distance, just knocking on the window, seeing how they are. Yeah. So they don't feel completely isolated. But yeah, I just wish humanity the best. I do.
Yeah, that's all we can do, isn't it, at the minute?
I know.
And I totally agree with you. I'm a positive, outgoing person. I'm quite creative, and I'm involved in a lot of things. Yeah. But I'm the same as you. I can one minute I can be, I'm going to do all these things, and I'm going to do this, and this, and the next one I'm like, I literally I just need to watch something on Netflix that I've watched 1,000 times before. That's just going to make me feel comforted.
Yes, it's true. There's a lot of comfort. There's a lot of self hugs. Yeah. We can't hug anybody else, can we?
No, we can't. So I always ask guests on the podcast 3 questions. The first one being, what would you say is great about Leeds?
That could be a long list. Because I'm Leeds born and bred, and I think what I like about, Leeds is in West Yorkshire, which is part of Yorkshire, is like one of my favourite places. I'm glad I was born in Yorkshire. Yeah. I like Leeds because it's multicultural, so it's interesting. I like Leeds because it's still it's a major city, but it's still got a lot of traditional ways, and there's still a lot of traditional people here with the old Yorkshire ways, which I love, and everyone is just friendly. I literally get on the bus and talk to anybody, and they'll tell you a life story. Yeah. And, it's that type of vibe. Even though it's a major city, it hasn't lost that, thank God, and I hope it never does. And that's why I like Leeds. There's a lot of talent here. A lot of my friends, unfortunately, in the past have had to move to London to do the various things that they want to do in media and art and stuff. But now, a lot of creative stuff is coming to our area now, which is great. So I think Leeds people has a lot to offer. Talent, friendliness, a lot of jokes. I think the sense of humour. I love Leeds' sense of humour. So
yeah, I do
it's
too.
Great. We should have a separate podcast for Leeds. How great it is.
Geraldine, what about you?
Yeah, like Fe, I was born in Leeds at the maternity hospital near the LGI. I grew up in Leeds. I studied in Leeds. I've never had a job out of Leeds. I've not really lived anywhere but an LS postcode, pretty much central, northeast and west. And like Fe, I think it's something that we sometimes take for granted, but we have so many different communities as a city of sanctuary. We've got a brilliant LGBTQ community. Yeah. We have, we welcome and support so many different people to pursue their interests. There's not always money for that, The Northern Powerhouse is still waiting to attract some of the bigger money, but obviously with Channel 4 coming, it feels like there might be more investment in our public transport and some of the things that we don't have. So I'm really positive about the future of Leeds. I think the other side of it is that when we don't have the money, when we don't have the resources, when we don't have the skills, we just have a go anyway. The do-it-yourself like ethos around activism, like the sort of work that women's organisations have done with refuges, the arts and music scene, the venues that have just been started up, the coffee houses that have just been started up by people who are passionate about something and they learn it as they go along. I think there's just something about an entrepreneurial, but not really for profit, for passion, spirit in Leeds that, you know, and it goes right across West Yorkshire. So I'm thinking more like Leeds city region. That whole ethos doesn't stop at the Ellis boundaries, but because it's where I've always lived and I've always known, then I think of it as a Leeds thing. It could be a Bradford thing that's extended into Leeds, really. But yeah, I don't know any different, so I always champion Leeds as the best thing there is.
What would you say?
I'd just like to say it had the first Yorkshire Pudding Festival in Leeds Kirkgate Market, and Leeds Kirkgate Market is a historical Grade 2 listed building, I think it is. So Leeds has a lot of firsts as well, which I'd like to mention. Yeah, if people look that up online and look at Leeds first, there's a lot of things that happen here first in Leeds. So yay.
Well, I feel awful now for asking the second question, but it has to be asked. What would you say is something that's not so great about Leeds?
Well, I think I've already said public transport. I mean, we do have brilliant bus drivers and train drivers, and we've had great plans around having trams. But it's the system and the infrastructure and the way that those services are run that just doesn't seem to meet anyone's needs. The number of times I've been standing at a bus stop in, like, not even in a city, but like kind of the sort of main city of Leeds, and just watch buses drive past without letting me on in the rain, possibly with a buggy, or not come by at all, watching all of the, you know, expected services not turn up. And there's something about it. Yeah, there just doesn't seem to be the capacity in Leeds to get people where they need to be. And obviously at the moment, because we're all stuck in our houses, this doesn't bother me a great deal. But when my doors open and I'm back to getting around and hopefully seeing people and doing things, it'd be wonderful if I could get on a bus that I've paid for with my weekly ticket and go to where I needed to go with the minimum amount of fuss.
Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, I think I'd like to add as well that Leeds hasn't always been great about using its own homegrown talent. As I said before, like a lot of my friends are in the creative arts type of situation, or anything really, that people have to leave Leeds to go somewhere else to do what they need to do. And I just think Leeds has so much talent. As I said, I'm born and bred here, so I've seen it. And it should draw more on the talent and nurture the talent here and grow the talent here, and then we can expand elsewhere in the world. But it'd be nice if people didn't have to leave Leeds to get opportunities.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Fe. And if somebody were a long-term resident of Leeds, like yourselves, could you tell them about a hidden gem that they may never have heard of?
Ooh. There probably is, but something.
I mean, like an arts and health gem.
It can be absolutely anything. A walk, a view, a cafe, somewhere that you particularly like. I mean, it's completely up to you. Just something that you think that people may not know about. It's not quite as well known as, say, Kirkgate Market or all the other brilliant places.
One of my favourite things at the moment is there's a little shop in Meanwood called Flavour Like Fancy. Oh yeah. It's run by an artist called Tasha Grant, and it only opened in August last year. But it's a kind of not only a kind of a shop, a boutique, a gift shop, almost like a gallery of really colourful and beautiful handmade items by local artists. But it's also a place to have workshops. And I've been talking to Tasha Grant from the perspective of the Leeds Arts and Health Network, because she works with such a lot of young and emerging creative people about how we can support those sort of people starting out on their journeys, showcase and support and assist them. And particularly at this time with the COVID outbreak, freelance artists and people who are self-employed are really much more at risk. So I think if anybody could support their kind of freelance shops and independent shops like Flavour Like Fancy, like now would be the time to do it. If there's any gifts or online shopping that you can do, a lot of those shops aren't able to move online. So it's an example of somewhere that you can still be a patron of and support. And I think, as I say, that's really important, particularly when those younger artists are just trying to start getting their foothold, because they don't have, savings yet. So they just got student debt, most likely, if anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that I'd really like more people in Leeds to know about and to visit.
Brilliant. I'll put links in the notes of the podcast that people can click through and find all the things that you've talked about. And what about you, Fe? Do you have a hidden gem?
Well, it's kind of a gem. I went on Rob Kilner's Heritage Walk of Leeds Kirkgate Market, and it was fascinating. And he took us to a stall in there that sells eggs. And this stall actually sold ostrich eggs.
Oh, wow.
Which I didn't know you could actually get an ostrich egg in Leeds Kirkgate Market. I was like, wow. You can get loads of other, different types of eggs as well, but you have to order it as well if you do want it. But, I was just blown away by that, because, these are type of things you probably might have to, I don't know, order from Harrods or somewhere, some specialist place. But to have that in Leeds Kirkgate Market, I thought that's quite cool. Whenever you need an ostrich egg, folks, you can go down there.
I never knew that. Thanks for that.
That's such a coincidence, because the latest podcast that I've released today, I recorded yesterday, and it was with Rob Kilner.
Oh, was it now? Hey! Yeah, he's so cool.
So you'll have to have a listen. Thank you both so much for coming and telling me all about LAWHN and all of the great work that you're doing.
Sure.
I'll make sure I'll put links to everything so that the people of Leeds can get involved.
Yay.
And
excellent.
Look after yourselves and take care.
Thank you, Hazel. It's been awesome.
Thanks, Hazel.
You take care.
Yeah, thank you.
It was great to chat to Geraldine and Fe. Do check out all of the links in the podcast notes to all of their channels. That shows all the great work. Music this week is the gorgeous track Magpies by Blue Nudes.
The blackest eyes, he tilts his hand to seek my mind, he pulls me in, I lift my hand, salute the bird, his lonely stand, he throws his head, his cruelest love, to say such sorrow is my path, I've known this for the longest while, and still I love you in denial. 'Cause one's not enough and two's too many, the scales won't balance, they never stay steady, and how can something so beautiful be such a bad omen? It's so cruel. By just fingerprints, the smallest traces under skin, and though we see each other hurt, it's not enough, so do I do as the beast, and chase his sadness away to find he has turned on me, and I am his sorrow's prey. 'Cause one's not enough and two's too many, the scales won't balance, they never stay steady, and how can something so beautiful be such a bad omen? It's so cruel. Have led you down beneath some ground that we've not charted, and we've emerged onto the hedge, blinking and startled, and just like the bird you brought me treasure, You brought me songs and shells and feathers. You brought me love I had never known. Without you I am untethered. 'Cause one's not enough and two's too many. The scales won't balance, they never stay steady. And how can something so beautiful be such a bad omen? It's so cruel. Thick, with words that I may never speak. I love you is all I can say, and however I try, I can't look away. But you've made it clear you won't look out. Your eyes elsewhere, I have no doubt. If only you would face me, but the bird's eyes are the only ones I see. One's not enough and two's too many. The scales won't balance, they never stay steady. And how can something so beautiful be such a bad